Welcome to Backroom Talk.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Backroom Talk. I am Georgia, here with Carl, and we are...
I almost said, I am Carl?
Like it was a question.
Yeah, because you did this, and I was like, I'm Carl? Gosh, you caught me off guard. No.
Well, this is part two of a two-part series where we sat down to chat with the Big Dawgs coaching staff. They were here for the summit, so we thought it was a good opportunity to pull them into the room and have a little conversation on some topics that we knew each of them would shine with. So if you haven't listened to part one, go back there. We chatted with Whitney, we chatted with Henry, and we chatted with Sam. And now for part two, you're going to hear a little bit from Will Trujillo, from Mizar Fuentes-Ortega, and from Michael Bann, that old guy.
Boom.
Yeah, enjoy the episode, guys, and make sure you leave us a comment, like, subscribe, review, all of the things.
Let's roll.
All right, so we're here with Will. Will, thanks for joining us, and we wanted to chat to you about some insight you have between some overlapping areas of the fitness industry, because you were... Just like Whitney, we chatted with Whitney. You wear a few different hats, and you've got some connections to the rehab world. You obviously work with fitness competitors and people like in the more fitness and health world as well, and then more on like the sport development side with some young athletes. So I think it would be really interesting to hear from you the things that those worlds have in common and the things that they have separate. So kind of got them listed out here. I'm going to read you one question at a time because otherwise we're just going to get lost. I figured. So what is one thing that fitness coaches can learn from the rehab world?
I think it's the individualization that you see a lot more in rehab, especially from like a personal side. You know, when you look at the shift in therapy research with the emergence of pain science and understanding, you know, that tissue isn't everything, kind of biopsychosocial model, we've probably intuitively been doing this for a while, but like we take a step back, really talk to our patients, we get to know them, like kind of meet them where they're at. And I think with fitness, you know, we look at, even if a client tells us they have this grand goal of the games or a six pack or making varsity, it's like we treat them as such and we kind of ignore the steps along the way.
So you're saying, sorry, I just want to make sure I'm following along. On the fitness side, you're saying, games, varsity, six pack. We're just saying, okay, you're that person that can be there, so I'm going to give you programming and I'm going to coach you like you're already there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, both the coaching and then the mentality. I don't think we respect like the growth needed to get there. So it's like the lack of we don't do as good of a job of personal relationships and kind of like digging into the other side of things.
Cool.
Yeah, you'd never really look for or expect shortcuts or like templates from someone who's providing you like medical healthcare. So why would you expect that from someone who's looking after your fitness?
Yeah, it's like when you're in pain, it's like, okay, we'll break back, we'll figure it out because we have this speed bump, but it's like we just kind of, no matter what the issue, even though it's just as important as being in pain, even if like lack of success, we'll plow through it.
Yeah. Let's go flip side. So the rehab world, what could they take from fitness coaches?
Structure and periodization. That is super easy. That's we do a good job. I think we do a good job of assessment, maybe picking intervention, but we don't we'd probably do a really poor job of like, okay, we've been doing this for 2 weeks. What's the next logical step? We've been doing this for 6 weeks. What's the next logical step? And then something that I do a lot of is like ACL and like post-op. That's even like my knee scope was like super simple, but it was like a 4-month project. That's multiple blocks of training versus even someone who has like those more serious like ACL or rotator cuff reconstructions. That's 12 to 18 months to like full performance. Like you need to kind of have this like long-term vision and like progress through those changes a lot better. We could do that a lot better.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because in the rehab world, you're used to seeing a patient from, post surgery from this month to this month, and that's it? So you don't really have to consider everything else that's happening 18, 24 months down the road?
I think it's two things. One is the insurance model limits you. So even if it's a non-surgical thing, say you have someone who's had a tendonitis for 2 years, so they haven't trained well for, maybe a year, to the point where they come see you, get them out of pain, and it's like, okay, well, do I jump back to where I was 2 years ago? What do I do? So, we could probably see them for 3 more visits, periodize their first step and get them rolling. That would be a benefit. And I think the other thing is, just in PT, like I taught in a PT program, like we don't teach period, like it's just not part of our education. It's something that we're ignoring. That's super important.
Yeah. Gosh, not to stay on that. I just find that so interesting and intriguing because I think there's always a reason, right? I don't think
Yeah.
like universities are like, well, fuck this thing. Like, we don't think this is important, right? Like, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
Why isn't it taught? In your opinion, is it just a timing thing where it's like we just don't have the time
I
and
think
you know
so.
we have other
It's-
curriculum?
It's not tested on boards. You know,
Mhm.
it's not like when you look at progressing patients, it's like based on pain. It's not, you know, again, it kind of goes back to like insurance models. It's like, so what we're looking for graduation or to prove they need more therapy, you know, it's so short-sighted that, you know, we cater to that. And then, you know, you know, I think you really have to specialize. Like you have to go into a really sports-minded either internship or, you know, clinical rotations or like do a residency. Like for me, like I kind of fell into it just because like I worked at a gym throughout graduate school and then like practiced in a gym. So it was like very normal in my mind to like apply that. And it wasn't until that I think I taught or like worked with some of my friends I graduated with on like sharing patients or whatever. I was like, you just been doing the same shit for 3 weeks,
Mhm.
5 weeks. Like just got to do something a little different and progressive to realize that this was such a big problem.
There's
Yeah.
got to be something to the fact that a lot of people aren't returning to performance and like sport. They're returning to sitting at their desk or on their couch as well.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, you know, when you look at that, it's like you know, we look at these standardized tests, which are great because like it lets you know like what's an expected level of capability, but the pool that we use to establish those is definitely not appropriate for the people that like come across my remote coaching desk or like roll into one of our OPEX gyms. Like, you know, they'll get hurt and they'll max out this standardized test, but that's nowhere near their desired capability, right? So just find the right practitioner who kind of speaks your language and, you know, can meet you where you are.
It's funny though. This has been my last point. Then we can go to the next one. You said that the rehab world can learn from the fitness coaching world, periodization and how to progress things. But it's funny. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this. I thought about this one example when you said that. When fitness coaches try to dabble in the rehab world, right? Like think about like these, you know, grandiose warm-ups that, you know, fitness coaches spend all this time in research thinking about like, how do I get my client to do X, Y, or Z?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll give like, and I think we all know what that looks like, right? Like warm up, you're going to go 3 sets for quality. You're going to do this. You're going to crawl. You're going to do some nerve gliding. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And then that coach just puts it in the client's program for 24 straight weeks. Same volume, same reps, no progression in mind. So it's interesting that you're saying that the rehab world should take that from coaches. But when coaches try to dabble in that
Yeah.
rehab world, they don't follow what you're saying or what they're doing in like the A, B's, and C's in progression.
No, I think that's hilarious because it's like you go through my programs. It'll usually be 3-week blocks of a specific corrective for that body part. So like if we do an upper lower split, like I have a client, Devlin, right now. He's like he got a crazy motorcycle wreck and wants to get back to running and lifting. And like so one of the big things is like motor control around the ankle, tib anterior. And so like Mondays and Fridays are 3-week blocks of ankle mobilization, specific strengthening pieces, but they're only for 3 weeks and they're still progressive reps week to week. So yeah, it's funny. It's like you ignore those things. It's like you can still make, whether you want to call it corrective or rehab exercise, progressive and stepwise, you know, and that should be happening even in like your ACL, like
Yeah.
your first 4 visits, the exercise may not change because of the surgical limitations, but it's reps, sets, rest periods. Like you can apply all the things of like muscle endurance, you know, maybe not absolute strength, but just like these variables and tweaks, like you can still, those can still be implemented at any part in the rehab stage. That way it's like, there shouldn't be 8 visits in a row that are exactly the same, no matter where you are.
Yeah. So no matter what, rehab or in the gym and trying to get bigger biceps, there has to be some type of adaptation that has to occur. If you're doing just like, you know, the same ankle mobilization thing Monday through Friday for 8 weeks, in week 3, you're probably just, your brain's
Maxed
just
out.
like, the fuck, yeah, I've done this, you know, 10 times already. What are you doing, man? So yeah, it's interesting.
Absolutely.
it is. Let's go to sport performance
Okay.
and one thing that fitness coaches can learn from the sport performance side of things.
It's funny because I thought about this, you know, and then we had our conversation this morning. I would say it's the fitness coaches could learn from sports performance that we don't need absolute loading at the volume that we think we do. right? So things like sprinting can drive neural changes. Your athletes can perform really well and really highly without the absolute heavy loading all the time. And I think sports performance coaches kind of do it on accident because we're scared to hurt people. Because these athletes, they don't get paid or they don't perform based off of a deadlift or a back squat. So, it's a little bit fear based, but we do leave them a little bit fresher. And I think as fitness coaches, we could see that. And I think that in our company, like, it was definitely something that I've learned and do a much better job of now of like cyclical loading. Like Sam has tons of great examples, like masters athletes, I think that's something that I would like to see more in the fitness industry of understanding like, hey, if you have like this high training age or, you already have a good level of absolute strength, like we don't need to like do these super high CNS driven, high recovery activities all the time.
Yeah, I think a lot of fitness coaches, they almost try to reach for things that they think will have carryover by accident, where sports performance coaches are, well, they should be fairly dialed in and letting the goal be the goal.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you could have a fitness coach and they're working with someone. This is just because we had that quick conversation a couple weeks ago. You have a fitness coach and they're working with someone that's getting ready to go in a marathon, not just like run it, but like they want to compete in a marathon. That fitness coach is probably going to, look at things like I need to improve the 1 rep max this and that because it could have some carryover. Where the performance coach or the coach that coaches a bunch of marathon runners, they're probably just like, they're in their brain, they're thinking about miles and pace when they're actually doing that thing. And they're like, yeah, fuck, I'm not putting, 85% of this person's absolute load on their back 3 times a week because that's going to take away from all those very specific things. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
Last one. So
Okay.
what's one thing that sports performance can learn from fitness coaches?
I'd say probably, especially from like our model, is the variation you can do for aerobic and lower aerobic conditioning. So, it's not just, I don't know how many people have just sent their kids on a 20-mile run, not a 20-mile run, but, just like you play the sport, go run. Like I'd probably say like fighting is probably the best one. It's like, I don't know how many wrestlers run 6 miles a night, and it's good, but we could actually give them less eccentric contractions. We could actually do things like timing their shadow boxing, put a heart rate monitor to it, mixed map work of carries and rowing and biking. Like there's a lot of things that we do that could be more convenient, play into, because like, I grew up in a cold weather state and like put on like 9 coats and go run around the lake and, if you're biomechanically not great at running, you're just going for a plod. So I think there's a ton of things that we could teach them to improve what they would consider conditioning.
Yeah, I love it.
We need to do a full one of these because I have like
I
a whole
want this
lot
guy
of
on for longer.
yeah. Let's set up like a full 60 to 90 minute one, man.
Yeah,
That's
we definitely need to.
yeah, we can roll on that.
Yeah, appreciate your multidisciplinary insight, Will. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we are here now with Mizar. So Mizar, Big Dawgs coach, and then OPEX Montreal is your gym. And anytime I speak to someone about you, Mizar, they're just like, their face starts to glow. They're like, Mizar is just like the best, kindest, nicest human being. I don't know someone that has had a bad interaction with you. Maybe you know someone who's had a bad interaction with you. I don't know. But I always hear good things from you in terms of your personality. And that's why we wanted to talk to you about relationship building with clients. You do it well with all of us as a coaching team. I haven't chatted with your clients, but I'm guessing you've got pretty good relationships with your clients. So our question for you was 3 recommendations for building good relationships with clients.
3 recommendations. Listen. First of all, just hear what the person has to say. Often we're very quick at just throwing out there what the plan we think should be. But really when you start listening to the person, it's something completely different, So once you actually start listening to where they are, what they want, what they've done, what has worked or hasn't worked, that's where you can come in and add value to where you're at as a coach.
Is it a matter of just sitting and listening, or is it what happens after you sit and listen?
It's asking the questions and waiting for their answer. Because like I said, sometimes you ask, hey, how are you? Good, good. And you? Good, good. Then you move on. But if you dig deeper, sometimes maybe the person has more to say than just good. Yeah, so how was your day? And then you keep evolving on with that. And, more specific to coaching, when someone comes at you and, has done, I don't know, some program, why did they stop it? What worked? What didn't work? Now what are they trying to look forward to, or where can I help them? And, it's when you stop and actually listen to all of those things that you start, kind of have clues of where to move forward with that.
Just for the people that are listening to this, what are some strategies to catch when you're not listening? Like in what your definition of listening is. Not just like the back and forth and the mindlessness, but just what are some strategies for coaches that are listening to catch themselves, right? Like, how do you check yourself to make sure that in every one of your conversations with every one of your clients that you're actually listening? You're not just like hearing them and like, moving the conversation forward. What are some strategies, if anything comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, something that I go back to is like, am I listening to the person, or am I already building an argument to answer back to the person? Right? It's not about proving that I'm right or wrong. It's about understanding what that person is saying to me, and if I'm understanding it well. Right? Even saying back to them, okay, so you're telling me this. Is that correct? Is that the direction you want to take? Is that what you've already done? Is that something that you've tried? Is that something that worked or didn't work?
Yep.
So just stop. Are you answering already in your head what they're trying to say or argue with you? Or you're actually listening to then be able to formulate an actual opinion or give them your advice, your knowledge?
I think that might be tough for some coaches because a lot of coaches are type A, right? Like type A personalities, and they want to be the driver of everything, the driver of the program, the driver of the conversation, the driver of the relationship. And because a lot of coaches are like that, I think that most want to come off as if they know everything, right? So when you said, don't try to formulate the argument in your head, instead listen, immediately I thought, or don't try to formulate the answer.
Yeah.
Maybe more questions need to be asked, because I've caught myself doing that in some conversations, and that's what I thought about when you said the listening piece of like, how do you check yourself? And I've caught myself doing that, like formulating answers to someone's like problem or question, and I don't actually understand it. I'm just like trying to solve instead of like dig deeper, ask more questions and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a good number one. Listen.
I like that. I'll add one little piece there in consultation. It can be tempting as a coach sometimes to think about this laundry list of things you want to get through with every client. Like, I've got to hit on their exercise, their nutrition, their sleep, their hydration, so on and so forth. And you spend time on the first thing and you're already thinking about the next thing you need to ask them. So just making sure you're giving them time to focus on, the one piece, and not already thinking in your head about what am I going to ask them next. Just spend time with that one question.
Yeah, because sometimes that's the only thing you're going to talk about, but that's the most important one that you need to talk about, if you need to move forward with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's number 2 piece of advice?
Number two would be, I guess, to get the plan in front of your client and agree with them. Like, is this okay based on what you just said? This is what we're gonna work through. Does this make sense to you? Right? Put them on your side, because if they're not on your side and they don't understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, they're not gonna do it. Or maybe they're gonna do it for a bit and then they're like, fuck this, that's not gonna work, and then you lost them. But if they do understand the process, they're like, okay, let's try this for 3 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever. Right now they're behind you. Now they understand, okay, you did this before. Now this is what we're going to try, and we're going to go step by step. Right? It's going to be hard because now you're building a new habit and blah, 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 and you're, set them up for success and understanding. Look, this is the challenge. This is what we're going to go through. It may work, but stick to it and we're going to get some results if they understand what's the plan.
You got to have a plan, though, to be able to explain to them, right? I think
right.
Some people jump into program design. There's not a plan there in the first place. So have a plan, number one, and then make your client a part of that process.
Absolutely. Right. And, like, again, bringing it to their level, where they're at. Right.
So I love that. Yeah, that's so good. We didn't pay Mizar to say any of this stuff either. This is stuff this is shit we always talk about, right? But no, that's good. I think it's good to hear it in a different way. I think the way that you're saying it is a little bit different than the way that we say it usually. And something that I like there is like speak a language that they can understand.
Mhm.
'Cause remember, going back to like type A, I know everything. I'm the coach. I'm going to talk a little bit over your head so you actually can't, challenge the things that I'm saying. Instead, you're saying like, hey, I'm talking directly to you. I want to make sure that you're understanding what I'm saying and that we're, in line with this plan and we can move forward. I like that.
Yeah. But even if you're a type A, this is where if you listen and then you give all the knowledge that you have, you can have even a bigger impact. Because now on top of that, you're showing that you're competent,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, a lot of trust is built there too.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Final piece of advice.
Final piece of advice. So we had listen, we had share your plan, formulate a plan, stick to the plan.
Mm.
Yeah, often, we're too early at, oh, well, that didn't work. Let's change gears. Let's change. No, look, it takes time. If you think of a habit, you're not going to stop, I don't know, watching, your phone before you go to bed, like just cold turkey. If you go step by step, maybe 3 days out of 7, you're going
Lay
to
this out, Mizar, because I think a lot of people need to hear how to stop looking at your phone before bed. Lay it out. Give us the master plan.
Well, again, just bring awareness.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what did you do before going to bed? Right? You could just start by, I don't know, you finish eating, go for a walk, actually do the dishes, speak with the wife, or go walk the dog, take a shower. What are the steps you're doing prior to going to bed? Like, bring awareness to that. Or, I just finished eating, turn on the TV, go to bed and watch your phone until you fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the process, how many years have you been doing that? Right? And then from there, that's where you need to understand that there's going to be victories, there's going to be failures, and we're going to have to circle back and build up again. When we think of habits, it's tough to admit, I've been doing this for years. Is it good? I don't know. But once you bring awareness and another perspective, then you shine light to another way of function. It's not easy. If I tell you, okay, let's wake up every time at the same time, even on a Saturday or on a Sunday, most of the responses is fuck that shit. Why would I do that? So
Yeah, that's
once
good.
you start understanding, then you can build and allow room to have some error, allow room to understand that there's normal. We're all human beings. We have to experiment with it. Understand that there's change, and feel that change. How did you feel the nights that you were able to put the phone away earlier, right? Imagine that would be every day. And instead of being one off day that you're not on your phone, now make that one off day that you are on the phone, right? Making that an exception, making a treat, make it a whatever.
Yep. Yeah, and you're not saying, never pivot away from that plan, but, stick to that plan for long enough to truly understand if that plan worked or not. Because we'll all, prescribe things that don't work, right? But we have to know, what is that time domain where we're like, okay, now I have to shift this thing up. And I need to communicate that again, right? It's like, I kind of think of the three things that you laid out as like this just like circle that keeps going, right? Listen, formulate, share, stick to it, pivot as needed, listen. You know what I mean? It's like there's this like perpetual circle that's just going on.
Reassess, redesign.
Yeah, same
come
thing.
back at it.
Yeah.
The thing I really like about that last one is it's not just on the coach, it's the coach and the client. It's a two-way street, right? Coach has to have their principles and their beliefs and help the client stick to the plan, but it's up to the client to stick to it in the end. On a good coach-client relationship requires both parties to hold up their end of the bargain. So I think you can't gloss over that point. It's everyone.
Yeah, there's the principles, and there's the actual reality. Imagine someone that hasn't eaten breakfast for years and think that intermittent fasting is the answer for everything, and now you have to make them eat breakfast. I'm not going to go into now, let's stick with the macros, let's put on top of that supplements, let's put on top of that the training routine. You need to meet them, okay, where are you at? Let's start with eating breakfast. What is it? I don't know, I don't care. As long as you have breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
And some days, oh no, I'm better when I don't eat breakfast. No, you're not. Look, go back to how's your energy throughout the day? How did you feel? How's your poo? And build from there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Mizar.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, buddy.
We have Bann here. You know him already. I
Yeah.
feel like we don't need.
You
to
know
do a
what's
full
cool?
intro.
His head's floating because with
Black
the
shirt,
lighting,
black
he's black and black.
background.
So you're gonna be a float. Like it's gonna look cool, man.
It
It's gonna look
is.
good.
If
Ninja,
if
very
you lose me,
ninja
I'll
like.
flex, and then I'll be visible again.
Well, for those that, again, don't know you, go back and listen to past episodes of Backroom Talk with Michael Bann. But today we have a very specific question we wanted your insight into, and that was what are 3 things that people should be doing that they're not doing for their health?
Oh man, yeah. Probably answers that people wouldn't expect me to say because I'm like the nerdy physiology. Let's look at your gut health. Let's do stool testing. But honestly, what I think three people. There's more than 3 people doing this, I'm sure. But the 3 things I would say would be setting boundaries, experiencing life, and lack of reflection. So those 3 things, I think, when we talk about health, a lot of the things we do, drink water, go to sleep, work out appropriately for your needs, your goals, and your training age, and all those things, those are all behaviors. And oftentimes those behaviors get skewed for a variety of reasons. But, if we're not setting boundaries, then we're allowing ourselves to sometimes become too busy, traumatized, and other things where it'll kind of detract from our capacity to take care of ourselves. And I think that's the same thing with like just reflecting and experiencing life. And so I think if you're not doing those 3 things, the odds of you great macros and hydration and perfect training, those things are probably going to not be in your life at all. And I say that because like I work and still do work with a lot of people for health. But, back in the day when I used to work primarily only with health, like people that are 400 pounds, it was never an issue of like, hey, man, just go drink more water and you're going to be good. There was always an excuse as to why they couldn't get something done. And it's like, there's an underlying emotional thing that's kind of causing somebody to not go drink more water or to not, eat their vegetables or get some sunlight or exercise. There's always a reason. And, we can be kind of egotistical and call it an excuse, but it's a reason and it's a valid reason. And I kind of drew from, the brain fog, brain fart.
It's the afternoon, big day.
Yeah, I know, right? I need more of that mushroom, the foreskin.
Forskelin.
Forskelin. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I
So
needed some more context.
yeah, Forskelin.
I keep pronouncing it wrong, but
Not foreskin. No, wait,
Good.
I made a joke. I was like, in some cultures, they'll grind up the placenta and they'll put it in a pill, and they'll take it, right? Like they'll swallow that pill. I was like, man, in my culture, we take foreskin, we grind it up, we put it in this pill. So Ben had some forskelin,
Yeah.
and L-theanine. So he's
brain's
coming
And
back
4
from that.
cups of coffee this
And 4
morning.
cups of coffee, yeah.
to be fair, the cups were like this big, so it's like the equivalent of 2, so it's okay. But yeah, it was Bruce Lipton, that's his name. So the biology of belief. So people's perceptions 100% can be absolutely wrong, but their belief structures are never wrong. And so I started to realize that in people, and I was like, man, like, your belief behind these things, like I can't disprove what you believe, but like your perception is so out there, like no. So I started to kind of think about that about a decade ago, and it's been really like on my brain the last few years, like the amount of times I've looked at blood work and stool tests and Dutch tests and like, hey man, like if you just got more sleep, most of this stuff would get better. Oh, I can't go to bed. I got to do this for my husband. I got to do this for my wife or my kids. Or I got to do this for my coach or my gym or whatever, my business. And it's like, all right, so there's a boundary setting thing. A lot of us are codependent and we don't realize it. And then that's where like the reflecting comes into play. I was guilty of that. And so one of my mentors would always tell me just to reflect after every interaction. Just reflect on it and just without judgment, just kind of, as James would call it, like notice your noticings. And at first you just notice stuff, and then you have to notice that you're noticing it. And you begin to reflect on that, and then you start to go, oh, yeah, that comes from there. Oh man, I got to kind of sit with that. And that kind of ties in with like the Samurai Coach talk that I'm going to give this weekend. You can't just decide to get rid of these things that you have that are like going on. You have to sit with them and like really sit with them and be like, oh God, that's kind of a gut punch to realize that I have that like problem. And I think we don't do that enough. And because we don't do that enough, we can't transcend and grow. So one of my mentors, Sharon, you guys know her. So she would always say, it's a shit pain outcome cycle. And like we all go through shit, all of us, you, me, everyone, like you guys, everyone, we do it. Then that causes some pain. And if we don't learn, then the outcome is basically going to be right back. It's going to repeat itself, but it's going to be bigger shit, more pain. And then you either learn or it gets even bigger. Or you learn and you grow to the next shit pain outcome cycle, and it never ends. Like there's always stuff to do. There's always shit to kind of go through. And I don't think we do enough reflecting on those things. And that really can kind of keep us in this like behavioral, like Groundhog's Day, with like, the movie like with Bill Murray, like every day he wakes up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, and we see this in clients, when you've done this long enough as a coach, you're like, okay, you're like my 30,000th client. And, you just like everybody else. And you just see it enough times and you just realize like people aren't sitting down to be like, and truly reflecting. And then I think like the experiencing of life thing, that's something that we get so caught up in like wanting to PR and like, you're like, oh, I can't have that beer. I gotta do some rowing next week. I really can't have that glass of wine with the wife, or I really can't go camping, or I can't do this thing. And we kind of forget that, like for us, or at least my belief is, I'm coaching people to reach more inspired life through the modality of fitness. And some people are truly inspired to compete, and that's their season of their life, like they're athletes, and that's where they find inspiration and fulfillment. Let's go. Let's crush it. Let's dial everything in, macros, micros, hydration, sleep, relationships. Everything is aligned with competing. You're inspired. Then, you kind of grow and you evolve, and you're like, you know what, I kind of want to just be fit enough to be able to like go hike and like hang out with my kids and all that and experience family. But it comes down to experiencing life. And I think we don't do that enough. I think we get caught up in like, oh, I gotta, like my self-worth is wrapped up around this one thing. And, kind of like Michael Singer, I don't know if you've ever read any of his books, like The Untethered Soul, right? Yep. So he talks about like, you're the experiencer of your experiences. Like I'm a coach, but actually coaching is just something I do to pay my bills. And I love what I do. But ultimately, if like, if coaching became illegal and like all of a sudden, boom, coaching is illegal, you're not allowed to do it anymore, I don't cease to exist. I just got to go do something else to pay the bills. And so to me, experiencing life is something that people forget to do because they get too caught up in simply, no, I got to do this one thing, and they just forget to live.
Yeah, I think, sorry.
Go for it, Carl.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
You
No.
take the floor.
No, yeah, when you said the thing on, people aren't living their lives because they have this rowing interval that they have to do next Wednesday, or, I'm at 9% body fat and I need to get to 7.5. Those people might be drawing inspiration from the people that do need to be 100% dialed in, like the athlete, where it's like micros, macros, hydration, sleep, training, everything has to be like boom, 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 right? And the person that's, maybe it's a person that's seeing that person do that and how dialed in and all the success that they're seeing. And this person that's like, I have rowing intervals next week, it's like there's no outcome of those rowing intervals, really. They're just moving, right? Like, so their coach programmed those rowing intervals. Their coach didn't program those rowing intervals because they need to win a rowing interval competition. That coach programmed those rowing intervals just to do some work, right? But that person is drawing inspiration from the person that is dialed in, and they think that for them to see success in this endeavor, because maybe there was no connection with the coach and the coach didn't lay out, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it, they might actually think that, I have to be this person to see success in the thing that I'm doing, because there might have not been someone that, was the Sharon to you, where it's like, you got to notice that shit. You got to reflect. You got to think about it, and like never had that opportunity to say like, why do you have to be dialed in for those rowing intervals next week? Why do you feel that way? And the person's like, well, because I just do, right? Like, oh, wait, do I? Right? Yeah. And they start to really notice that stuff. But I think that really long, drawn out, thought of me kind of walking through that was just like, the person might just be unaware, right? Like totally. there might not be anything wrong. The person just needs to have a conversation with someone and have someone like you had say, hey, just notice that stuff. And like, why do you feel that way? Why does the outcome have to be this or that?
Yeah, and I think that's where, like, come back to the original question, like the idea of like what are like 3 things people are not currently doing to be healthy. let's define health. Like, to me, health is the ability to live well despite the inescapable sickness and disease every single one of us will encounter. And we get so caught up in this, like, oh no, we can't get sick. We got to stay healthy all the time. No, that's not life. So the ability to live well despite the inescapable sickness we all eventually encounter, that's healthy. So if somebody's, they're like, oh, I got to get dialed in for these row intervals. Well, I want to ask the question, like, why do you need to do the row intervals? Like, what is it doing for you to help you with your goals and your alignment of your values? And, if those row intervals are truly helping you with your goals, here we go, let's do them.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, if you're not reflecting on, like, well, why am I doing this? A lot of the times, I want to get better at rowing. Well, why do you want to get better at rowing? Well, because ultimately I think it's going to help me lose weight. Why do you need to lose weight? Oh, because I'm single and I want to, like, find a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or I want to get a mate and I want to, like, get married. Why do you need to lose 20 pounds to get married? Like, let's talk about that and let's reflect on that to kind of figure out where the heck that comes from.
My brain immediately went to, why the hell do you have to do rowing intervals to get married?
That's what it
comes to, right?
That's how clients will think about it, right? Like, people will think that. They'll think, okay, well, I need to lose 20 pounds because that will make me more attractive, which will make me more lovable. But ultimately, like, they're like, well, if I row, I'll lose weight, I'll lose 20 pounds, and then I'll be lovable. Why do you need to row to be lovable? And when you put it that way, people are like, what? Like, oh shit, you're right. Like, why do I need to do this? Okay, let's talk about that lack of thing that you're having. Let's reflect on that. And I think if we all just reflected more on our own shit, myself included, we'd all get a little healthier. We'd all find a little bit more alignment. And honestly, I think if we're more aligned with our innate values, and values evolve throughout our life, 18-year-olds will see things different than, like, 35-year-olds. But if we get more aligned, we're more likely to be healthy in general. Like, you're not going to want to eat pizza and beer on the regular, or at least not have that, like, craving if you're hydrated, eating vegetables, getting good sleep, good fitness. Like, you're not going to have that natural inclination to eat that junk food because you'll be in balance with physiology. But it starts up here. It's a top-down approach. Where the mind goes, the body follows.
Well, Michael, we appreciate that insight and some, like, slightly unusual answers. Like you said, not what we were going to expect. So much appreciated.
We need to set up another one because I want to dig into. I had some other questions that I'm going to hold those.
Me too.
I want to talk about in the future. I want to talk about what health is, and is health actually individualized as well? Don't answer that. Just think about it.
I was about to start.
Yeah. But let's. We're gonna go grab some dinner right now.
Yeah.
So we'll cut this short, and thanks for jumping on, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you for listening to that episode with Mizar, Will, and Bann, or Michael.
Let's go with Bann. I think we'd call him Bann.
Yeah,
I call him Michael sometimes in more of, like, official settings.
In
like
when you're telling him off.
Yeah, I'm like, Michael. That you got scared, right? Because you haven't seen that.
That was a little intense.
Yeah,
Your kids experience that, but I don't. No, we don't do that in the workplace here. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Again, if you didn't listen to part 1, go back and listen to part 1 from last week. And as always, please like, subscribe, leave us a review. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.